I'm adding on to this video. I just finished editing this thumbnail, and it seems like Falcao has gyno. It seems like it. Not sure if it's from an imbalance in his hormones, but yeah, the Brazilians love the juice, and a little bit suspect, but that was just a little bit funny, and I had to bring it up. Probably Adesanya's twin brother or something. Welcome to the breakdown for James Barnes versus Pedro Falcao on Dana White's Contender Series week number 8. First fight of the night, bantamweight bout. Both guys a little bit older, right? You think that Contender Series, right? Contender Series, you'd think that you'd have someone that has an opportunity to become a contender. Pedro Falcao, 29 though, 10 years younger than James Barnes, right? James Barnes finally getting his chance here at the UFC. Had former stints in Bellator, went 2-3 in Bellator. Lost to AJ McKee when AJ McKee was 1-0. Kind of funny how that ends up happening, right? AJ McKee's still undefeated to this day. James Barnes is good. He's 39. Did start his career a little bit later in his life. I think he started when he was 33. I think he made his pro debut. So he's not the oldest in terms of, if you're thinking about age in MMA, you might be thinking, oh, he's got, years on the tires, but he hasn't really lost a lot of tread, right? He's still a little bit young in his fight career, so it's not like you're going to see an old-ass 39-year-old in there, swinging, you know what I mean? So, but the thing is, James Barnes, he's a good grappler, he's a good wrestler. I think that's going to be weird against Falcao because Falcao is also a decent grappler. But the problem is with this fight, and the reason that I'm going to tell people to stay away from this fight in terms of betting is, Dana White Contender Series, you can't gauge people. Sure, you have regional footage and stuff like that, but regional competition is different than UFC. And when you're betting on UFC fights and you're betting on Contender Series fights, they're completely different things. If you're betting on UFC fights, you know what you're getting out of your fighter. You know where they are in the division and that type of thing. But here it's where's Pedro Falcao? Because I look at his record. Sure, he's beating these guys, but whenever you see him take that big step up in competition, right? Let's pull up his record here. He takes that big step up in competition, he either faulties or just wins by decision. So, not that I'm overriding Pedro Falcao. The pick is Pedro Falcao. I'm not sure if he's going to finish James Barnes. I think he gets it done by decision. You look at his record, you see him beat, higher level competition. It's typically by decision. And when he's finishing people, it's people that got, a little bit of an iffy record. James Barnes, on the other hand, facing good competition as well. More of finishing people by submission. His striking is a little weird, right? It's typically to close a distance. You'll know when a fighter is striking to engage a clinch or something. And that's what you kind of see from James Barnes, at least from what I've seen, right? A little bit of a forewarning here. When you're trying to bet these Contender Series fights, sometimes you won't find footage, right? And you're just blue balling it practically when you're making these picks or you're making these decisions, right? But I think James Barnes probably won't clinch against the cage, probably won't be able to take this to the ground. I'm not sure if Pedro Falcao will entertain that. Pedro Falcao definitely has the power advantage. I would give him the slight striking advantage. None of these guys are elite strikers. I don't think any of these guys are going to go out there and pull off some Edson Barboza type KO. But I'll take Falcao by decision. If you like Falcao finishing this fight and you think I'm some dumbass and you're like, oh, what is this guy thinking? Then sure, take him, probably by KO or submission. The reason I'm straying away from that finish prop for Pedro Falcao here is because you see a lot of bantamweight bouts on Contender Series typically go to decision, like the main event. Even when someone missed weight, he still won the fight and went to decision. So, yeah, the pick is Pedro Falcao by decision. If you'd like him to finish this fight, probably take him by KO, ground and pound. I'm sure James Barnes has some decent submission defense, and maybe he might be able to snitch in a sub. But just you can't predict he's gonna rock him and go for a submission, right? You can, but I'm not gonna be giving people that idea in their head and say that that's what's gonna happen because it probably might not happen. So the pick is Pedro Falcao by decision. Also, I forgot to mention, if you're looking at typology, Pedro Falcao is not 5'4". He's not 5'4". Looking at his footage and the tail of a tape or whatever regional scene he was fighting in, they had him in as 5'8". So if you're thinking oh, he's got the size disadvantage, he doesn't. He's 5'8". And if he's not 5'8", walking into that cage, they lied about his height. But yeah, that was the pick. Peace, yo.